Former Director of the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity Agency, Christopher Krebs, went on 60 Minutes last night maintaining that the 2020 election is, quote, the most secure in American history. Watch.
We can go on and on with all the farcical claims that alleging interference in the 2020 election, but the proof is in the ballots. The recounts are consistent with the initial count, and to me, that's further evidence, that's confirmation that the systems used in the 2020 election performed as expected, and the American people should have 100% confidence in their vote.
President Trump, who fired Krebs back on November 17th, blasted the interview on Twitter, saying 60 Minutes never asked us for a comment about their ridiculous one-sided story on election security, which is an international joke. Our 2020 election, from poorly rated Dominion to a county flooded with unaccounted for mail-in ballots, was probably our least secure ever. Well, only one side can be right here. Which one is it? Here with the latest on the Trump team's legal battle, someone fighting on those front lines, Matt Schlapp, chairman of the American Conservative Union. Matt, good to see you again.
Great to be with you again, Buck.
So we got Arizona certified a vote today. We've got judges freezing voting machines in Georgia. Tell us what's happening this week in this battle, or as of today, I should say, and expected to happen in the days ahead, that everyone needs to know about.
Well, let me first comment, if it's okay, Buck, on this 60 Minutes interview
Sure.
with this former Homeland Security political official. This was never about a recount. He's confusing this with the year 2000, when you had a very close race in the state of Florida, and it was a question of recounting ballots to make sure that slim majority that it was counted accurately. What's going on in 2020 is an election challenge. He says, well, we have all the paper ballots. The point is, the paper ballots were corruptly put into the count by big city election officials who were all run by the Democratic Party in a way where they didn't make sure that those ballots were legal ballots. And now that they're in the count, it's impossible to go back and look through the paper and put them back with the envelopes and figure out the level of corruption that was in the count. I know with the work we've done in Nevada, it's enough to flip the results in Nevada. So he's speaking these words that if you don't understand what actually went down, the dirty deeds that went down on election day, it sounds plausible that he's right. The more you know that this was a coordinated process to put a bunch of illegal paper into the count. By the way, all of those are felonies. You can't vote illegally in America.
Well, apparently you can, as long as you get away with it, Matt. So tell us.
That's a fair and sad comment, Buck.
Yeah, tell me what are the, we keep hearing the word fraud. This is what, and the president says, cheated, fraudulent. These are the words that we're hearing about this election. Where is the fraud proof, right? That's the people ask that question, and it feels like we, at least the public, in part because the media doesn't want to cover it, doesn't have a clear answer on that.
So I would invite everybody who's listening and watching to your show, which is a great show, to follow Paul Bedard at the Washington Examiner. He's actually covering evidence of fraud. He's going to be doing another series of articles. In the state of Nevada, where I've spent most of my time, we've been carefully documenting the thousands and thousands of illegal ballots. And this is a big week because on Thursday, we're going to get the chance, the lawyers on the team are going to get the chance to appear before a judge in Carson City, Nevada, and present all this evidence. All I can tell you and the people watching and listening is that we are carefully documenting all the fraud. I can't solve the problems with what I will call the fake news media that refuses to acknowledge vote fraud when it occurs by Democrats. But when it occurs by Republicans, they're fine with it. For instance, the Republican who won a seat in North Carolina, but then his staff was later found guilty of voter fraud, he was not allowed to take that seat in Congress due to that illegal activity. They were great with covering that example of election fraud, but they're clearly turning a blind eye to all of this illegality because they hate Trump that much.
What are you going to be able to do? I mean, Nevada's clearly, I know that's where you are, and that's the the battleground state in all this process that you know the best. What are you going to be able, or the team you're working with, be able to present this week to the judge that will be clear, right? What are we going to see? Go ahead.
That's right. So Buck Sexton informed the post office that he was moving from Nevada, but then months later, Buck Sexton voted in Nevada. That's a problem. And when you call Buck Sexton, who no longer lives in Nevada, and say, hey, did you know you voted in Nevada? And they say, that's strange because I didn't vote in Nevada. That's verification of the fraud. We have thousands of examples. We have dead people who voted. We have their death certificates. We have tombstones. We've talked to the family. Do you know that your deceased loved one voted? No, I didn't know that. So it's time consuming, and the Democrats know that, and the media knows that. It's time consuming to go through all of this data and confirm it.
Matt, this is important because I hear some of this. How would someone, and I know that people would all make their jokes here that have to be resurrected or be a zombie, but the person who is dead, who has a vote cast in his or her name, do we have a sense already of who cast that vote? Was it a mistake or was it systematic? Because it feels like that's the next level where this goes.
Right, so not a mistake because the election officials corruptly mailed out 93,000 ballots that were illegal to fill in and mail back, right? They sent them, they never scrubbed their list, even though the law told them they had to. They waited till the day after the deadline to ask that those names be scrubbed so they wouldn't be scrubbed. And they went out and they went to apartment complexes, they went to ghost addresses. When you have dirty election files, Buck, in other words, they're not cleaned. You don't take off the people who died with death records. You don't take off the people who moved through the postal records of national change of address. You don't keep scrubbing them on a daily basis. They get aged. If you know the names on that list that are most likely aged and dirty and polluted and should no longer be on the list, and you get those names ahead of time, you know they're going to be mailed, you can just collect them. Now, it's still illegal to vote on them. But in each one of these categories, we have the names of thousands of ballots. So for that dead person, your example, how did that dead person vote? Their ballot was mailed to somebody. Somebody at that address either filled it out or somebody collected it. And that's the evidence that we have in these states, which is people would literally know that there would be a bundle of ballots at an apartment complex and they would collect them. And these ballots would get mailed on. I mean, I know it sounds almost like a fantasy to people who are listening. I've never seen anything like this. I'm 52 years old. I've been doing politics my whole life. The level of illegal voting in Nevada literally switches the outcome from one presidential candidate to the other. This can't be acceptable to anybody. I don't care what your politics. Anybody could, if we're going to cheat to this extent, I suppose my side could learn to cheat as well. Why is it elections overseas, they can find out the winner immediately? Why is it Indiana and Kentucky can vote their ballots immediately, and we find out by the end of dinner time who won those states? But in these big cities that, by the way, they let their cities burn with all the protests, they always come in the latest. They always seem to make up the number of votes it takes to switch the election contest. And I just think it's odious and it's obvious. And we're going to get our chance in court to present that evidence. I can assure you it's solid. I can't promise what's going to happen with this judge, and I can't promise what's going to happen going forward. But we've got to get a handle on this corruption, or Republicans will never win in these races ever again, and they'll never win the presidency ever again.
Matt Schlapp of the ACU. Matt, great to see you. Thanks again, and thanks for the work you're doing down there. Hey, Team Buck, just want to say thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more great content from The First, please click that subscribe button.